stop, only a tiny fraction of you are subscribed. If you believe using race as a shield to escape accountability is wrong. And if you want to see Judge Caprio confront one of the most explosive accusations ever made in his courtroom, hit subscribe. Right now, a sharply dressed black woman enters Judge Caprio's courtroom with unmistakable confidence. A designer suit, expensive jewelry, and a lawyer's briefcase. Her name is Denise Montgomery, a corporate attorney in her early 40s. She drives a luxury BMW. The charge is a red light violation, captured by a traffic camera, a small fine, a routine case. It should be over quickly. But from her very first words, it's clear she has no intention of paying. Your Honor, I plead not guilty. That red light camera is located in a predominantly black neighborhood. This is targeted enforcement. Judge Caprio looks up from the file. Miss Montgomery. The red light camera photographs every vehicle that enters the intersection after the signal changes, regardless of the driver's race. That's what they always say. Comment where you're watching from. Because what happens when this attorney turns a traffic ticket into an accusation of racism becomes one of the most intense courtroom moments you'll ever see. It's a weekday afternoon in Providence Municipal Court. The bailiff calls the case. Denise Montgomery steps forward. She doesn't walk nervously. She strides. An Armani suit, a designer scarf, a luxury necklace. Everything about her project's success. And control, she's holding a legal pad filled with notes. Judge Caprio reviews the citation. Miss Montgomery, according to the traffic camera at the intersection of Broad Street and Elmwood Avenue, your vehicle entered the intersection after the light had already turned red. The photograph clearly shows your license plate. How do you plead? Not guilty, Your Honor. I challenge the validity of this citation on multiple grounds. Judge Caprio nods calmly. Go ahead, explain your grounds. Denise glances at her notes. First, the traffic camera system in Providence is disproportionately concentrated in minority neighborhoods. That constitutes discriminatory enforcement. Miss Montgomery, Judge Caprio replies evenly. Traffic cameras are placed at intersections with high accident rates, not based on neighborhood demographics. That's the official explanation. She fires back, but the data suggests otherwise. Do you have that data with you? I can provide it if necessary, she says, but that's not my only objection. Judge Caprio waits. Second, I question the accuracy of the timestamp. The delay shown is well within the margin of error for these cameras. The cameras are regularly calibrated and certified by the state. Judge Caprio responds, the margin of error does not support your claim. Her tone sharpens. With all due respect, Your Honor, you're not a traffic engineer. You're simply accepting the state's word without independent verification. The courtroom shifts uncomfortably. She's speaking to Judge Caprio like he's opposing counsel. Before this continues, answer this in the comments. Have you ever seen someone use race as an excuse to avoid responsibility? Because what Denise says next crosses a line. Judge Caprio remains composed. Miss Montgomery. I may not be a traffic engineer, but I rely on certified expert testimony. Unless you can present evidence that this camera malfunctioned, the citation stands. I'm challenging the entire system, she replies. That's a legislative issue, not a courtroom issue, Judge Caprio says firmly. You're here to address whether you ran this specific red light. She folds her arms. Fine, let's see the photo. Judge Caprio pulls it up on the monitor. The image is clear. Her BMW, her license plate. The traffic signal plainly read. Denise studies the screen. The image quality is poor. That could be anyone's BMW. Your license plate is clearly visible, Judge Caprio says, and it's registered to you. Someone could have stolen my plates. Did you report stolen plates to the police? No, I only realized it was a possibility after I received this citation. Judge Caprio takes a slow breath. Miss Montgomery, you're an attorney. You know that's not how this works. A claim of stolen plates requires a police report filed before the violation. I'm saying it's possible. That creates doubt. This is not a criminal trial. Judge Caprio replies, it's a civil infraction. The standard here is whether the evidence more likely than not shows the violation occurred. And it does. Her voice rises. Your Honor, I drive through that intersection every day on my way to work. I know that light. The yellow phase is too short. it doesn't give drivers enough time to stop safely. The yellow light duration meets federal standards. Judge Caprio says calmly, that duration isn't enough for drivers traveling at normal speed. The posted speed limit is lower than what you're suggesting, and the courtroom holds its breath, knowing this argument is about to turn into something far bigger than a traffic ticket. Most people drive faster than the limit. Then most people are speeding. That doesn't erase a red light violation. Hit like if you can see where this is going, because Denise is about to launch the accusation that changes everything. Denise slams her legal pad onto the podium. Your Honor, I'm not paying this fine. It's unjust. It's discriminatory. And I refuse to be another statistic in a system designed to extract money from black professionals. Judge Caprio's expression hardens. Miss Montgomery, this has nothing to do with race. You ran a red light. The camera recorded it. That's the beginning and the end of this case. Of course you'd say that. You're not the one being targeted. Targeted, Judge Caprio replies. You violated a traffic law. The camera doesn't know your race, your profession, or your income. It records license plates. Denise leans forward. Let me ask you something, Your Honor. How many cases like this do you see from wealthy white neighborhoods compared to black neighborhoods? I see cases from every neighborhood in Providence, Judge Caprio answers. The camera does not discriminate, but the placement does, and so does the enforcement. Miss Montgomery, if you believe camera placement is discriminatory, file a complaint with the City Council. That does not change the fact that you ran this red light. I'm not paying it. Judge Caprio's voice becomes firm. Miss Montgomery, you don't have that option. You either pay the fine, or I find you in contempt. Contempt for what? For pointing out systemic racism in traffic enforcement, for refusing to accept the court's ruling. Denise raises her voice. This is exactly what I'm talking about. A black woman questions the system, and suddenly she's threatened. With contempt, if I were a white woman, you'd listen to my concerns. The courtroom erupts in whispers. Judge Caprio stands. Miss Montgomery, your race has nothing to do with this ruling. Nothing. You ran a red light. You are attempting to avoid accountability by turning this into an accusation of discrimination. Subscribe if you want to see how Judge Caprio handles being called a racist, because what happens next is explosive. Denise points at the bench. You're doing exactly what the system always does, dismissing legitimate concerns about racial bias by claiming everything is fair. I'm not dismissing anything, Judge Caprio responds. I'm telling you that a traffic camera does not see race. It sees vehicles that violate traffic laws, and those cameras are disproportionately placed in black neighborhoods. They're placed at dangerous intersections, which just happen to be in black neighborhoods. That's not a coincidence. Judge Caprio's voice rises for the first time. Miss Montgomery, you are blending two separate issues. If you believe camera placement is discriminatory, challenge it through the proper channels, but you cannot use that argument to escape a valid traffic citation. Denise raises her voice to match his. I absolutely can when the entire system is designed to criminalize black people for the same behavior white people get away with. That is not what is happening here. Then why am I being treated like a criminal for questioning a traffic ticket? You are not being treated like a criminal. You are being held accountable for running a red light while refusing to accept the court's ruling. Judge Caprio slams his hand on the bench. The courtroom falls silent. Miss Montgomery, I have been a judge for decades. I have presided over tens of thousands of cases. I have treated every defendant the same, regardless of race, religion, gender, or economic status. I see black defendants in my courtroom every day. I see white defendants, Hispanic defendants, Asian defendants, and I apply the same law to every single one. Denise's voice drips with sarcasm as the tension reaches its breaking point. How convenient that you don't see race. I never said I don't see race, Judge Caprio responds. I said race does not determine how I apply the law, but it may affect how laws are enforced before cases ever reach this courtroom. That may be true in some situations, Denise fires back. But this traffic camera doesn't care if you're black, white, or purple. It photographs vehicles that run red lights, and you're using that camera to fine me for something. White drivers get away with every day. Comment accountability if you think Denise is avoiding responsibility by playing the race card. Judge Caprio steps away from the bench and stands directly in front of her. Miss Montgomery, let me be absolutely clear. Racism is real. Systemic. Racism in law enforcement is real. Discriminatory policing is real. I do not deny any of that. Denise looks caught off guard. But what you're doing right now is not fighting racism. You are using the language of civil rights to avoid a traffic ticket. And that is offensive. Offensive, Denise snaps. You're calling me offensive? Yes, Judge Caprio says calmly. Because real victims of racial discrimination deserve to have their claims taken seriously. When you accuse racism over a traffic camera that photographs everyone equally, you weaken legitimate claims of discrimination. Denise's face tightens. How dare you tell me what weakens discrimination? You're a white man lecturing me about racism. I am not lecturing you about racism, Judge Caprio replies. I'm telling you this specific case is not about racism. It's about a red light you ran. In your opinion, in the opinion of the traffic camera that photographed your vehicle entering the intersection after the light turned red, Denise grabs her briefcase. I'm not standing here while you gaslight me about racial justice, Miss Montgomery. Sit down. No, I'm leaving. This court is racist. This system is racist, and I'm filing a complaint. Miss Montgomery, if you walk out that door, I will hold you in contempt and issue a warrant for your arrest. Denise stops at the doorway. Are you threatening me? I am informing you of the consequences of leaving a court hearing without permission. Let me guess. You don't threaten white defendants like this. Judge Caprio's voice turns ice cold. Every defendant who attempts to walk out of my courtroom receives the same warning. Race has nothing to do with it. Hit like right now if Judge Caprio is handling this perfectly. Denise slowly turns back. So, now I'm being detained because I'm black. You are being required to remain because you are a defendant. In an active court proceeding, that rule applies to everyone. I want this on the record, Denise says sharply. Judge Frank Caprio is racially profiling me. The court reporter looks up, stunned. Judge Caprio's jaw tightens. Let it be on the record. And let it also be on the record that you ran a red light, refused to accept responsibility, and are now alleging racial discrimination to avoid a traffic fine. That's your narrative. And my narrative, Judge Caprio responds, is that you were cited by a camera that photographed your license plate, targeted by a system that places those cameras in black neighborhoods. Even if that were true, he says evenly, and I am not conceding that it is. It does not change the fact that you ran this specific red light. Denise crosses her arms. I'm still not paying it. Judge Caprio returns to the bench. Very well. Here is what will happen. You're fine for running the red light stands because you have refused to accept the court's ruling and have repeatedly accused this court of racism without evidence. I am adding a contempt charge. Denise's eyes widen. You're fining me for calling out racism? I am fining you for contempt of court, Judge Caprio says evenly, for refusing to accept a lawful ruling, for attempting to leave a hearing without permission, and for making unfounded accusations against this court. Unfounded, Denise snaps. Everything I said is true. You have provided no evidence of racism in this proceeding, the judge replies. No evidence that the camera was placed in a discriminatory way. No evidence that you are being treated differently from any other defendant. You have simply asserted racism as a defense against accountability. Because it is true. Then prove it, Judge Caprio says calmly. Show me a white defendant who ran a red light on camera and did not receive a citation. Show me data proving this camera tickets black drivers at a higher rate than white drivers for the same violation. Show me anything beyond your assertion. Denise has no response. You can't, the judge continues, because this is not about racism. It's about you running a red light and refusing to pay the fine. Subscribe if you believe using race to avoid responsibility is wrong. Judge Caprio goes on. Miss Montgomery, you are an attorney. You know better. You understand the difference between legitimate claims of discrimination and using race as a shield against accountability. I'm not using race as a shield. Yes, you are, he replies firmly. And it is insulting to people who experience real discrimination. When a black man is pulled over simply for driving while black, that is racism. When a black woman receives harsher punishment than a white woman for the same offense, that is racism. When you are photographed by a traffic camera running a red light and receive the same ticket as everyone else, that is not racism. That is equality. Denise's voice softens. cracking slightly. You don't understand what it's like to be constantly questioned, constantly targeted. You're right, Judge Caprio says gently. I don't, and I'm not dismissing your experiences. But I am telling you that this traffic citation is not part of that pattern. This is a straightforward violation supported by photographic evidence. His tone softens further. If you have genuine concerns about traffic camera placement, I encourage you to pursue them through proper channels. Contact civil rights organizations, file formal complaints, gather data, present it to city officials. Those are the right avenues for addressing systemic issues, but in this courtroom today, you must answer for running this red light, and race has nothing to do with that. Denise stands silently. Your total fine is now $285. Judge Caprio states that includes the red light violation and the contempt charge. You have 30 days to pay. Do you understand? Denise nods, defeated, and Miss Montgomery. He adds, one more thing. I hope you never experience real racism in a courtroom. Because if you ever do, and you report it, people need to believe you. The way to protect legitimate claims is not to make illegitimate ones. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yes, Your Honor, Denise says quietly. You are dismissed. Comment dismissed if you think Judge Caprio handled this perfectly. Denise walks to the clerk's office. The confidence she entered with is gone. She pays the fine, far more than the original amount. Outside the courthouse, Denise sits in her BMW for a long time. She reflects on what the judge said about real discrimination versus avoiding responsibility, about crying wolf and being believed when it truly matters. She starts the car and drives back to the intersection. She waits. The light turns yellow. Then read. This time, she stops. Denise Montgomery's story reminds us that racism is real. Discrimination is real. But using those serious issues to escape personal responsibility weakens legitimate claims and harms real victims. Judge Frank Caprio demonstrated that it is possible to acknowledge systemic injustice while still holding individuals accountable. The two are not opposites. Here's the real question. How do we fight genuine injustice while also owning our personal choices? How do we have honest conversations about race without turning it into a weapon to avoid consequences? Denise learned that courtrooms demand truth, and the truth was simple. She ran a red light. Everything else was noise. Now it's your turn. Did Judge Caprio handle this correctly? Should he have shown more sympathy, or was he right to separate systemic issues from individual accountability? Comment below. Share if you believe personal responsibility matters regardless of race. Like if Judge Caprio handled this with balance and integrity. Subscribe to Judge Stories YT for more moments where truth matters more than excuses.